This is it. I don't think there's a more polarizing franchise of horror comedies out there, soldiers. It's gonna be tricky. It's gonna be cringy. And by God, boils and ghouls, it is gonna make us uncomfortable. But I must do it. We as horror fans need to contend with that blight on our history that is Scary Movie.
Do you like scary movies?
So what is Scary Movie, and why do people feel so strongly about it? Scary Movie was a horror parody released in the year 2000. And as much as Dimension Films would want you to think that it's based off of 2 scripts, last summer I screamed because Halloween fell on Friday the 13th, written by the Wayans brothers and Phil Bowman, and Scream If You Know What I Did Last Halloween, by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. But it really isn't, you guys. From what I could gather, the Wayans brothers were put in charge of organizing the script. And they later admitted that they didn't even bother to read Friedberg and Seltzer's script after Keenan Wayans checked it over and decided that it wasn't worth it. Hey, that isn't fair. Why are you guys so afraid of allowing other artists to contribute to your work? You know, I bet they had some really good ideas. Oh shit. You know what? Never mind. Even that name is so generic. Scary Movie? Ew. Who would even think to name a movie such a, One second, guys. I'm getting a call here. Oh. I have just been informed that Scary Movie was actually the working title for Scream, one of my all-time favorite horror movies. Although that does bring me to a point that I always found kind of odd about this movie. It is literally a parody of a parody. Think about it. As much as Scream definitely divulged into a more traditional horror franchise later on,
what's your favorite scary movie?
It did start off mocking the very same movies that its writer, Wes Craven, had been working in for years.
No, it's just, what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting. I'm a boss-ass bitch!
Wes Craven did not make Scream to make a quick buck or to capitalize on a trend. This was a man who will always be beloved within the horror community. He has created some of our most iconic images. So if anyone is going to know the things to poke fun at in a satire like this, it's gonna be Wes Craven.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
He was able to make jokes about how dumb and formulaic horror movies are.
Oh my God, Randy, I thought you were dead.
I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin.
While simultaneously giving us a really cool, original villain that you could recognize from a mile off. And not one, but 2 badass female protagonists who come out the victors every time. That's the kind of loving parody that only a true horror fan could really give us. And what have the Wayans brothers worked on in the past? A lot of comedies. You know what? I'm actually not gonna write this one off yet. I mean, look at someone like Jordan Peele. He came from a comedic background and he was able to transition seamlessly into horror. I think it helps that the 2 genres are actually very similar. Both genres depend heavily on the use of timing.
I told her straight out. I just said it, man. I said it. I said, bitch.
Hey guys!
Hey girl, how you doing, man? You having a good time?
And the manipulation of strong emotions. Joy in the case of comedy and terror in the case of horror. So with that theory in mind, what's the first scene?
Hello?
Wanna have a little fun?
It's the exact same opening from Scream. No, I mean the exact same opening. Let me run this out for you. So, not Drew Barrymore is making popcorn in preparation to watch a movie. She receives a phone call, and it's during this interaction that we get our first deviation from the original movie. She farts.
What's that noise?
Oops. I farted.
Riveting. Fast forward, the killer continues to quote Scream at her.
Do you like scary movies?
She tells him that her favorite scary movie is Kazam, even though that's not a scary movie. I get that that's the joke, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. The scene continues on exactly like Scream, with the minor difference that they stop to make sex jokes.
Why do you want to know my name?
Because I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
Nice breasts.
Or jokes about how she keeps making the wrong choices. Which, by the way, Scream was also able to make multiple jokes about how people in horror movies keep making the wrong decisions.
Always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
But it also knew when to stop making jokes and when to give us a tense scene for the death of a teenage girl. But maybe I'm being unfair. Scream was produced by a horror director and Scary Movie was produced by comedians. Clearly this movie has a different tone from Scream. It also has a very different sense of humor from Scream. Maybe I need to just shut up with the Scream comparisons and let the movie play out. Okay, what's the next scene? The exact same scene that follows the opening from Scream. Except now her dad is a drug dealer.
Now, if the cops raid the place,
I never heard of you.
and don't forget,
To flush your stash.
Okay, fine, I'll give this movie a chance. I just really hope that we get some original scene eventually. Like, can you imagine if the shot-for-shot remake of Psycho just stopped to tell us sex jokes randomly?
we all go a little mad sometimes.
Nice breasts.
They're not saying anything funny or new about the genre, they're just being derivative because they didn't feel like coming up with their own scenes. It's at this point that we're introduced to our full cast of characters, and fortunately they are even easier for me to summarize than normal. We have Final Girl. Her whole thing is that she won't have sex with her boyfriend. The promiscuous one, her whole thing is being vapid and promiscuous. But I do kind of like that they named her Buffy, considering she's based off a character played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. See, it's subtle little references like that I actually appreciate Scary Movie. Brenda, her whole thing is being the stereotype of an angry black woman. Gay man, he hits on dudes.
Constantly.
That's a joke, boy. You missed it.
Boyfriend guy, he's creepy and skeevy. And holy fuck, is this cast list still going? Fine, I'll just rapid fire these fuckers. Chad, Stoner, Lois Lane, and
Special Officer Doofy.
I don't even know what this is supposed to be. I would bother to name most of these characters, but I'm not going to, because the writers clearly don't care about them deeper than their stereotype. Anyway, going back to the plot. As we're being introduced to our characters, we see the media sensation that has swarmed around the school in the light of not Drew Barrymore's death. I do have to admit, there is this whole scene where the characters are just casually talking and they walk past a coroner's car in the school parking lot. And there is kind of a surreal humor to that I do enjoy. It doesn't make sense why there would be the coroner's car here at the high school when not Drew Barrymore died at home. But its presence here does make me think of this high school where kids are just constantly dying and nobody cares. Which wouldn't really make sense with the whole media sensation going on right now, but whatever. You're soon gonna realize that this whole movie does not take place in our reality anyway. And that's not necessarily a problem in comedy. Surreality can work very well for that purpose. Just look at something like Heathers. It's just that in this movie, the surreality sometimes works, and sometimes doesn't. You'll see what I mean in a little bit. At this point, our far too large cast of characters flash back to the time that they were ripping off a different movie. I Know What You Did Last Summer, which you might remember because Scary Movie parodied it. I grew up watching the movie. It's got a great cast. It's super 90s. There's just nothing really memorable about it. I'm sorry. Anyway, boyfriend guy is driving the sex mobile, but he's too distracted trying to join the party to keep his eyes on the road. They all decide to dump the body just like they did in the original. And they agree to take the secret to their grave. Final Girl does this kind of unwillingly. Yes, I saw the exact same thing and I know what you did last summer. Let's move on. Flash forward again, we see Final Girl in class when...
You go to your daddy. I'll see you after class.
Sweet.
I honestly don't even know why that joke is in this movie. They literally just made a joke about a teacher at their high school being a serial pedophile, everyone being aware of it, and nobody caring because, what? She's a woman? For the record, we're a third way through the movie and the only original scene has involved a pedophile teacher. And don't worry, that doesn't start a new trend or anything. They then rip off Halloween, before immediately afterwards ripping off I Know What You Did Last Summer. Final girl gets called into the principal's office so that we can return to ripping off Scream. I'm sorry, I need to compare these two scenes again. The point in both of these scenes is to communicate something about Sydney's mother. In Scream, it's incredibly subtle.
She was daughter of,
The cop just briefly brings up Sydney's mom, before hushing up and refusing to say anything more, creating tension and intrigue. Really, he could be referring to Sydney's mom's reputation for promiscuity, or he could be referring to her murder. We don't really know because both things kind of affect this circumstance. A lot of their community unfortunately thinks that Sydney's mom got what she deserved or that she somehow asked for it because she was known to sleep around, and we don't really know what these two men's opinion is. But at this point in the movie, all that we really know is that there's something to be known about Sydney's mom. In Scary Movie, the cop just starts humping the air while he's talking about her.
Isn't she the daughter of,
the one and only.
The one and only.
Is this what locker room talk looks like, gentlemen? Speaking of locker rooms, Chad gets an unpleasant surprise in one. A blackmail picture of his small penis. Now, this is definitely derivative of I Know What You Did Last Summer, as Ryan Felipe's character was blackmailed in a locker room. And in that movie, that scene was followed with an exciting car chase. Here, Chad does what any guy who's just been blackmailed for having a small penis would do. He runs out and shows everyone. Do you see what I mean about this movie not playing out anything like it would in reality? We then come from one ripoff of I Know What You Did Last Summer to another. Now we have to rip off Sarah Michelle Gellar's whole beauty pageant scene. Just like in the original, she sees the killer attack her boyfriend and she tries to warn him. But nobody understands what she's trying to do when they end up holding her back. In I Know What You Did Last Summer, she runs from the stage in a burst of hysteria, and the audience has to physically restrain her to keep her from getting to her boyfriend. Here she makes no attempt to get off the stage whatsoever, so the audience just assumes that it's part of the act. This is the one legitimately funny joke in the movie, and it's mostly because of this punchline.
Greg! You won! They're calling your name! I won? They're calling your name! Go!
Buffy, what happened? What about Greg?
Oh, fuck Greg! I won!
Ignore her, Greg. You're beautiful. Final girl is hanging out at home when Ghostface, and yes, it's literally just Ghostface. They didn't even try to give us anything original or give us a funnier version of him or anything. Like, Ghostface does have his moments of acting like a stereotypical stoner.
What you doing, son? Nothing. Just chilling. Killing.
But in the actual fight scenes, he doesn't come across as any more bumbling than the real Ghostface. Also, this scene is a perfect example of how the surreality in this universe doesn't really work. We have this one scene where Ghostface is trying to get Final Girl to guess where he is in the house. She finds him immediately, so he asks her to turn around so that he can hide again. This could be very funny if instead of just turning around and complying, Sydney tried to sneak off or something. What's that, Mr. Killer? Turn around? Oh, okay, I'm totally doing that right now. Hey, are you trying to escape right now? You are. I see you inching. You're inching. You caught me. Oh, you. Final Girl and Crazy Killer. They're one and the same. At least if Final Girl tried to escape, they'd have the potential to set up a comedic scene. But instead, she just acts in a way that nobody would ever act in this situation, and I guess that's the joke? It's not even a good riff on horror. If anything, Final Girls are the only ones who act like normal people. Final Girl gets rescued just like in Scream. And moving on.
Are you all alone? What's up? What's up? What's up?
I genuinely don't know why anyone ever found this funny.
I heard Bobby got out this morning.
I haven't seen him around. Is he pissed?
You mean since you branded him the Candyman? No, his heart is broken.
That's an exact scene from Scream. Line for fucking line.
Haven't seen Billy around. Is he really pissed?
You mean after you branded him the Candyman? No, his heart's broken.
It's like I've seen this all before. It was in this movie Scream. Same dialogue and everything.
No, calling it out as derivative doesn't make it better. Just like your face won't hurt any less if I admit to punching it. But it's okay. To anyone who wanted to see an original scene in this movie, the director threw you a bone. Or a pair of saggy balls on the girl's gym teacher.
Come in, Jerry. Have a seat. Take off your bra if you'd like.
And I'm sure that representing trans women as sexual predators who just want to molest teenage girls will have no repercussions for the coming years. Vapid Girl gets killed in a parody of Rose McGowan's death from Scream.
You wanna play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless cheerleader?
It is exceptionally clear that the writers have seen no horror movies except for Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Okay, this review is getting repetitive just like this movie. Let's keep going. We do get another scene where the surreality in the movie works to its favor, as we have Lois Lane attempting to film a girl's live murder for television. This moment does a decent job of commenting on how the media will glorify violence to the point of sacrificing innocent victims. They just had to ruin it with some really unfunny, gross out humor parodying this scene from the Blair Witch. I'm not even gonna. Just use your imagination, really. Unfortunately, the next movie that they parody isn't even Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's Scream 2! Why are they watching Shakespeare in Love? Besides the fact that Regina Hall says Shakespeare cute.
She's about to get it on with Shakespeare.
I'm just saying, this is supposed to be a horror parody. Why not play something horror? Seriously, you guys, if Necromantic can understand this, you have no excuse. This is just laziness at this point. Okay, anyway, gay guy goes to the bathroom and gets glory holed to death. Which, to be fair, is how I intend to go. Brenda gets stabbed by the entire movie theater when she won't stop talking over the movie. Do you see what I mean about how these are the simplest characters in existence? A 12-year-old could have written something more complex. But Scream ended in a party, so I guess it's time to get to that. We have yet another parody of Rose McGowan's death in Scream, this time focusing on the whole moment where she tried to go through the garage door and got stuck. But this time, the garage door falls down. Riveted. Final girl and boyfriend guy have sex that is American Pie levels of awkward. Do you think the monkey watches all? Before the ending of Scream plays out with very few surprises. Boyfriend guy gets stabbed before he reveals that he was the killer all along.
We all go a little crazy sometimes.
Gay guy is revealed to be his sidekick.
Surprise, Cindy.
They have final girl's father stashed in a closet. They stab each other so that they can pretend to be survivors of the massacre themselves. Blah, blah, blah. Boring.
Give me a knife.
Fuck out of here. Ain't nobody stabbing me.
Wait, did Ghostface just show up? So those boys aren't Ghostface. They're just some random murderers? Well, that's almost worse than being derivative. You ripped off that whole scene with no purpose. Final girl fights Ghostface in a parody of The Matrix, which, might I remind you, is not a horror movie, and Ghostface gets away. Officer Zachariah asks Final Girl if she knows who the killer might be, and together they just kind of figure out that it's Doofy. Because, why? Is this supposed to be some sort of comment on Dewey's character? Does it matter to the story at all? Why am I still questioning this? Let's just wrap it up. In his review of the movie, Roger Ebert said, "To get your money's worth, you need to be familiar with the various teenage horror franchises." And I completely disagree. If you're familiar with these franchises, then you might get a chuckle or two. But if you've ever actually watched these movies, then you're just gonna find yourself wondering why you're watching the same scenes again, just filmed worse and with plenty of jokes that miss more than they land. This movie was hugely successful when it came out, enough to spawn too many sequels. And to be honest, I do kind of understand why. They're gross, hypersexual, and unrestrained from what some people might call political correctness. I honestly do remember there being a time, albeit short, when I did enjoy watching these movies. I was about 12 and I only really liked them because they made me feel more adult. Because honestly, I really wish that this movie offered us any semblance of creativity. It's way too easy to make a racist joke and get a cheap laugh out of an audience that's just uncomfortable. It actually takes skill to craft legitimate humor. And this movie does show us the occasional sign that at one point, maybe early in development, someone talented did touch this movie. But that touch has long since faded by the time it gets to release. 4 incurable cases of deja vu out of 10. Thank you so much for joining me here today, my pets, and I will see you next time. Love you.
Nice breasts.
Although donating to my Patreon is unnecessary, it is hugely appreciated. As little as $3 a month could help me put out many more videos. On that note, I'd like to thank Andre K, Scott Falks, Thrill House, and Wilson L. Ricks III. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. I can't wait to see you all next time.